Yeah, we're gonna be. Hi everyone. I'm broadcasting on a couple of different channels, so you're gonna see me move my eyes. That's not because I'm not present with you, but because I'm doing it on a couple of channels. So I want to do a short video today just to talk about how do you tell a really good quality olive oil by smelling and tasting it. I will be the first to admit that I was so ignorant about olive oil, so much so that even when I wrote my first book, I didn't actually realize that I still didn't know enough about olive oil, so much so that I think if I tasted a really good olive oil, I would have thought it was rancid, even though it was not. So I wanna show you the Italian way of using a small shot glass and opening up the flavors in your olive oil to really know the quality of it. Before I do that, the demo, and while I'm talking, maybe this is your opportunity to run over to your kitchen and pull out your bottle of olive oil. And if you have a shot glass like this, that totally works. If you have just a regular cup, it's fine too. The whole idea is that we're gonna be putting a bit of olive oil in, we're gonna close it up, warm it up, and do this, and then we're gonna taste it, and I'll walk you through the whole process. But I want to. So while I'm talking, maybe grab your olive oil so that you can do the test for yourself in your own home, and then determine what is the quality olive oil. And there's some comments about. There's always these arguments about best olive oils from Greece and is from Spain or is from Italy. Actually, all of that is it can be true, but it could also be not true because of various different factors. So just because something is coming from a region, it doesn't automatically make it superior. What makes it superior is the freshness. That's one of the first things, the freshness of olive oil. So if you think about it, the interesting thing the way to think about olive oil is actually a freshly pressed fruit. And so I think that, so that kind of gives you an idea, right? That if you have a juice that you freshly pressed in your kitchen, like I have a juicer right there in the corner. You might see it right there, right there. On Instagram, you won't see it, but anyway, I have a juicer in the corner. I often use, when you make a fresh juice, you want to drink it as soon as possible, right? Like you don't want to be keeping it in the fridge for more than 3 days. It gets oxidized. It starts tasting pretty yucky. So that's one thing. And so from a therapeutic perspective, what's medicinal in olive oil is those fragrances that we're going to be looking for when we do the test. And that's what really gives you like that strong flavor, that smell that punches your face, so to speak, your nose in an amazing way. So that's what we're going to be looking for. It's a little bit like, I just want to make it clear, it's not snobbery here, okay? It's not food snobbery that I'm promoting. It's just truly looking for quality of food that has got the highest medicinal value that you can potentially get for the dollars you are spending. So the reason why I say that is because it's a little bit like, is this exact same thing like with herbs, right? I remember, one time renting this apartment on Airbnb, and this host said, "Oh, I have all these herbs and spices." And I remember opening up the jars in her kitchen, right? And I'll put my nose in, and it wasn't labeled very well. So it was like so old, it was all scrappy. And I put my nose in, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is. Like, this could be thyme, maybe it's oregano, but it tasted like ground up furniture. And it tells you that what we call the organolaptics of an herb, organolaptics of a food, or olive oil for that matter, that we're talking about today, the matters because these compounds that are medicinal are the ones that give out that fragrance. So that really, really matters. Smell matters, taste matters a lot. And so for those of you who use olive oil like freshly pressed, you probably would never want to go back. My neighbors, I've turned them into doing the olive oil from Freshly Pressed Olive Oil Club. That's the one I'm going to be talking about today. And they go, every time we run out of olive oil and we go to Whole Foods or whatever, try to get a bottle there, it's just never the same. And it's very true. It's just uncomparable. So let's do that. Let's do some sampling. If you want to bring your own bottle with you and do it with me, then do so. So I want to show you what to do with that. So I've got, so the bottles that I'm having here, there's two of them. There should be a third one, but I finished it. Is the latest harvest from Australia, right? So this is where my point about these, these arguments that people like to have, like, oh, best olive oil is from Greece. Well, it's not the best olive oil if it was pressed like 3 years ago. If it was pressed even a year ago, right? So summer in Europe is kind of past. It's typically olive oil in Europe is pressed in October, November, right? So now you could be getting a really good olive oil. The one that I'm having here is from a previous harvest, is from Australia, because that's when the freshest one was occurring. But when you're signing up to the Fresh Press Olive Oil Club, it's an olive oil club just the same way club wines work, right? You will be always receiving the freshest olive oil, and that's what's most important about this whole this whole club thing, right? So let's we're gonna post the link of where you can check out the whole story and why I love them, and the founders as well. I'll tell you about the founders in a second, but let's get the tasting going first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open up a bottle. It's still fresh, as you can see. It's still fully sealed. So the first thing we want to do is, when you open it up, grab your little shot glass. Okay, the thinner the better. It can also be a little cup. It can be a plastic cup as well. Actually, plastic cups are actually pretty good because you're gonna warm up the oil really quickly. The next thing you're gonna do is we're gonna pour about a tablespoon of olive oil, right? So it's not a lot, just about this amount, into the cup. And you don't do anything. Don't drink it. Don't do anything with it yet. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna wrap around your hand around the glass. And the purpose of doing that is so that you warm up the olive oil. You know how you warm up food, and then the food smells different. It imparts like a really nice flavor, right? And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be swirling it. So you swirl it around in order to open up all the flavors in it. And and so you typically do that for about a minute. And this is how, when there is olive oil competitions, for example, in Italy, in Greece, in Spain, around the world, in the US, this is exactly the same technique. They do that actually at judging competitions, right? And next thing you know is be careful, don't release your hand yet. What you want to do is you want to do it very gently and just open up just a tiny bit, so you get the flavor in a very concentrated way going straight into your nose. Oh, wow. Okay. So right away, what I'm smelling from this olive oil is like, as if, you know how we have freshly pressed grass outside, right? And your neighbor has just mown the lawn, and you're just walking by, like that fresh grass smell. That's exactly what I'm getting. From this oil, I'm not getting it so much, but from Italian olive oils, one of the things that always pops out really hard for me is tomatoes. You know how, for those of you who have grown tomatoes before, when you touch the leaf of a tomato, you smell your hand, it's like, wow, it really smells so amazing, right? So this one, it doesn't have the tomato flavor in it, but what I am smelling is artichokes in it. It's very vegetal as well. It's like that freshness of vegetables, that you just pick vegetables from a farmer's market, and you start touching them and putting them in the fridge or washing them. Immediately you have that smell to it. So that's the first thing you want to do. In fact, if you have and so if you're not getting that kind of flavor, and this typically when I do this with the olive oil that I have purchased from a regular health food store, no matter how good it is supposed to be, because they are not fresh. So that's there's another whole controversy about olive oil. I can talk about this in a second. I just want to focus on the tasting now. But if I was to do this from an olive oil that I got, let's say from a regular health food store, I don't know how old it is. Maybe that olive oil is 1 year old, maybe it's 2 years old, maybe it is olive oil, maybe it's mixed up with other oils, you just don't know for sure. Then the smell is not going to be as potent, and nothing is going to really strongly hit my nose in the same way. So the next thing you want to do is, this is where we come to tasting. So you can find similarity with wine, right? Like you never just drink your wine straight away. You open it up first, you smell it, you look at the color, and then only you do the tasting. So then let's go on to doing the tasting. And the way you do it is you just take a little bit of that a little bit of the sip, not a full sip, but just enough to coat your entire mouth and then swallow. So let's do that because I can't talk while I'm doing that. Mm. So the first thing that happens is the putting that olive oil in the mouth, it's just all that smells that I smell, I've just felt like everything is even more exaggerated now in the mouth. One of the wonderful things is that I'm not having any like oily deposits in my mouth, almost like a film that stays in the mouth. Oils that are diluted with other vegetable oils, which is, you might have heard about the whole scandal about olive oil and how there was a famous journalist for the New Yorker has found that the olive oil, standard olive oil in America, is actually diluted with a lot of different vegetable oils and is very inferior quality. And one of the ways that you know it's other vegetable oils leave like a film in your mouth, and you can kind of, right now my mouth just feels really nice and clean. I don't even realize that I had just consumed olive oil, right? So that's one way of knowing. Now, the other thing you want to notice is the amount of scratching sensation that it gives you at the back of your throat. And actually, Italian tasters have a term for it, where there is a scale from 1 to 3 on the amount of scratchiness that it leaves on the throat. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just that determines how that olive oil will be paired with different foods. More scratchy will be a little bit more peppery, if you will go a little bit better with things like maybe meats and heavy meals, where the lighter ones will go with things like salads and fish. So this one is definitely on the lighter side. I'll probably give it a 1 from on a scale 1 to 3. It's not super scratchy. Sometimes it can be so scratchy that is almost literally you just go, let me stop talking for 5 minutes because I need to kind of catch my breath. Now, that's not doesn't mean that your olive oil is rancid. That's, believe it or not, just a few years ago, that's what I thought, is that if olive oil scratches your throat, it must be rancid. It is not. Rancidity is determined in a very different way. First of all, you're not going to smell these beautiful floral, tomato, artichoke, woody, fresh mown lawn smells. You're going to be smelling something either just really off. Right away, something is off. And when you taste it straight away in your mouth, you're going to be having this really yucky feeling. So it's very different from that scratchy feeling. Part of the reason why you actually want to have that scratchy feeling, you want to have that peppery taste to your olive oil, is because polyphenols are the highest when, and they taste that way. They do taste bitter. They do taste peppery. When you don't have that smell, it just means that the olive oil you're consuming is significantly lower in your polyphenols, and their nutritionally is not going to be as potent. Interesting, huh? Now, another interesting factoid is that, when I first partnered up with the Freshly Pressed Olive Oil Club, I didn't really know whether they were legit or whether they were just all about marketing. So I happened to be visiting Sicily, where one of their suppliers of olive oil, and by the way, every year they change suppliers depending on the quality, because not every year olive oil is very good quality from anywhere. So the founder, TJ Robinson, travels the world and picks the best olive oil for that particular season. So when he told me that the Sicilian company was one of them that he purchased that year, I happened to be in Sicily, and I made an appointment, and I went to the groves, the farm, and the factory just to see it for myself. And you can immediately sense like the incredible commitment, seriousness about it, sense of tradition and pride they have in making these products. They are not shysters. They are not con men. They are not there for a quick buck. They've been doing this for generations. They pride themselves, and they have entirely this humongous wall that was just full of certificates and prizes, and they just won so much because of how amazing the olive oil is. But one of the interesting things about what he told me, the founder, was that in order to accomplish a really high polyphenol content in your olive oil, the olives need to be picked when they are only about 60% ripe, meaning they are not that nice and soft yet. They are still very hardy. And in the downside of it is that as a manufacturer, they are having about 40% less yield as compared to someone who collects the olive oils when they're fully ripe. So as you can see, it's a huge financial compromise, right? To be able to make magnificent product that's full of polyphenols, but on the other hand, making it in a way that they know they're going to be losing 40% of their yield because they want to produce a quality product. Interesting, huh? So again, going back to your arguments about, best olive oil is from Spain, I say maybe, but does it comply with all these other things we're talking about? When was it picked? When was it pressed? At which point? How do you know it's not contaminated? Does it have all the different certifications? And the list goes on. So in Italy, the Italian olive oil, there is a few certifications like the IGP or DOP. That is, DOP is the highest standard for olive oil. But if you're buying it like at Whole Foods, for example, any health food store, unfortunately, this is one of those products that is not going to have any quality product behind it as such, meaning that it's not going to tell you, for example, when was it pressed, which is super annoying. It will tell you when is it expiring by, but typically from the time of pressing to expiry, it could be 4 or 5 years because they look at it, when would the olive oil go rancid, rather than at which point is it the most healthful for you. I don't know about you, but olive oil is the backbone of my cooking, and I depend on it tremendously. In fact, I go through 6 bottles every quarter, just because, and as a single household, I probably consume a lot of it. But I feel like it's still worth it if it's not just for the taste, it's for food as medicine, right? So if this is something that interests you, check out the Freshly Pressed Olive Oil Club. My assistant Kamalani is gonna post the links where you can check it out. The cool thing is that if you're not part of the club yet, you can claim a bottle for $1. So you can get, typically the bottle is like $30 something. You can get it for $1 just to try it out. If you don't like it, you think it's not worth it, just cancel it. And if you join a subscription, I do the subscription for 3 of these. So one, like I said, I just finished 3 of these for a quarter, and a quarter is 130 something, $37 or $39 per quarter. So is it cheap? No, it's not, right? But it's also, I feel like I need such small quantities of it that for the price it is, turns out, per month, and for the benefits that I get from it, it is well worth it. So let's see what questions we are getting. And I'm actually gonna, Tonya is saying, I have run out of fresh pressed olive oil, and I'm having to use some other from a store right now. I have fresh pressed olive oil for about 2 years now. Yeah, she's like showing us a sad face. I know. So you can renew it. It's all renewable. So yeah, let me see. Okay, so we should be good for this call. And I'm gonna do another call in just a few minutes. I'm gonna be talking about vitamin D and how do you check it out yourself at home without testing, just going by the symptoms that you're vitamin D deficient. So I'm gonna hang up this call and I'm gonna get another one in just a second to do that. Well, I hope this was helpful. I definitely, when I went to Italy for the first time, did like a proper tasting and met the manufacturers of olive oil. It was certainly a very eye-opening moment for me. I was like, wow, I thought I knew a lot about food, but clearly not enough. And so I hope this was helpful for you. And also just to open up your perspective a little bit that, just because you are of Italian background doesn't mean all Italian olive oils immediately fantastic. In fact, some of the biggest offenders of those fake olive oils or compromised olive oils that were diluted with vegetable oils were actually having all the Italian names like Bertolucci, and you would have thought, oh, beautiful Italian name, and and actually it wasn't, and it was all very contaminated and diluted and compromised. So So there is a lot more nuance to olive oils than, you know, just where is it coming from. You're going to look at, again, so just to wrap this up, you're going to look at it, when was it pressed, that you want to have it as fresh as possible. You want to make sure it's got this incredible smell when you open up the bottle. You stick your nose, or you do the cup method that I showed you. It's got a little bit of scratchy, peppery taste to it. If it doesn't, it means that it's most likely diluted with something else. Or it's just been pressed when it was very ripe, so you don't have very many polyphenols in it. So those are some of the markers that you can use to determine how good your olive oil is. Okay, thanks everyone for being here today, and I'll see you later.